Hey, I'm Dalton Gregory. I was born here in New Albany, raised in the Liberty community. I went to Ingomar most of my life, or all of my life, where I graduated from. I was a senior in high school when my brother kind of talked me into going to buy my first hog dog. It was a Catahoula cur, and then we kind of trained her up, and we got to take her out during February on the government land in Lafayette County, and where I got to actually kill my first hog with my first dog. It was a very, very good experience. We had a couple of our buddies with us that had some more experienced dogs that kind of helped us out a good bit, and it took off from there. It was a whole another type of adrenaline rush, to where I had to do it every year. I couldn't stop it. Every February we go run the government land in Lafayette, and sometimes in Marshall County, depending on where the hogs are exactly. But we just train our dogs up very well, and put a bunch of stuff on them to where they don't get hurt, and take new people, let them experience the adrenaline like we have. It's a very interesting sport for sure. I don't know what I'd do if I couldn't do it every year. It's something that I've got to do.
How did your brother get involved in it?
He had a buddy that had finally talked him into going with him. I don't know, he finally just gave in, and he got to experience it, and he kind of led me as an older brother. I kind of followed him around and stuff, so I kind of wanted to fall into the footsteps with him doing that, and we went with that man for several years to where he wasn't able to, so we kind of just carried on the tradition that he had passed on to us.
Now, these wild hogs, have they always been a problem?
As far as I know, I'm not 100%, but as long as I've been alive, I've always heard of people, griping about them destroying their crops, rooting up their cow pastures, just hurting everything that they touch. I mean, it destroys the land. It don't matter what type it is. They just root up big holes. Cows can fall in them, break something. It hurts the farm life in general.
Did we know where they came from? Like, have they always been here?
I'm not 100% on that. I've heard stories that they was introduced to this area in the 1950s. Not 100% on that, but I know that there is a little bit of the original Russian boar bloodline still going around, but there is a lot of domestic hogs that have kind of got in with the feral and, had babies, and they just took off.
So, how much damage can one wild hog do?
I don't.
Is there any way to even describe that?
Not really. They can. I've seen them root up probably a 20-acre food plot in a night or two, and just destroy the whole thing and be gone. And it's depending. The size of the hog can vary a lot on what they can do, but I've seen them dig holes, a foot and a half deep, trying to get stuff out of the ground. So it's kind of hard to say what one individual hog could do, but they can really do some damage on it.
So they're digging up crops to eat it?
Yes. They're eating
And
like the
fast.
roots and the bugs and all kinds of different stuff that, especially soybeans, they really put a damage on them, and corn, which nowadays, there's not very much corn around anymore. It's getting a little expensive. Then they destroy it, so you're losing even more money.
How do farmers know when there's one? Like, what's the first sign?
It's kind of hard not to see, when they come into a field, there'll be rubs on trees all around it from where they've been wallering in the mud to get the bugs and stuff off of them, and there'll just be clumps of dirt turned over just like you took a disc down through there and disc the field up again. they just start throwing dirt everywhere and digging holes, and they do it pretty bad.
So when a farmer sees the first sign of it, he's looking for somebody to come in.
Yes, they usually try to get somebody as quickly as possible, or take matters into their own hands with traps or thermals, shoot them at night, which is legal in Mississippi. Then some people like us get the privilege to run them with our dogs. So it's nice that they're there because we still get to do it, but they still destroy a lot of stuff.
How big is a wild hog?
We've killed some, a big boar hog will, range from 250 to 275 pounds, which they do get bigger than that, but, they have a lot of pressure on them. Even though they reproduce so fast, they still get hunted a lot around here. You kill a 250 pound boar hog, you've done something that's worth talking about. But the sows usually are roughly around the same range, just a little bit smaller. But I have experienced killing a 300 pound boar, and one of my buddies has killed a sow that weighed 397. So they was really a once in a lifetime pig for around here, as big as they was.
Now, how fast do they reproduce? How long does it take them to?
I know that we run several different times a year. I know they usually have shoats in February. Then I've ran in August this time of year, and they've had shoats. So I know they can have them at least 2 to 3 times a year. And the hearsay is the first set that they have can reproduce by the time the sow has their third set. So, which is, I have no truth behind that, but that's just hearsay. But they can reproduce very, very fastly.
How many will they typically have at a time?
I've seen anywhere from 6 to probably 12. They have several. It's a whole litter for sure. Then there'll be, 2 or 3 sows in a group that have the same. So, there may be 30 shoats running around getting ready to start doing what their parents are doing.
You talked about the dog that you trained. It's a special kind of dog.
Yes, it is a Catahoula cur dog. It is. They originated from Louisiana. They come from the Spanish, and they cattle dogs. They're kind of like a herding dog, and that's just, I don't know. Every dog that I've ever had has been a Catahoula that I've hunted with. I don't know. They just they're kind of bred for it. They have the will to do it.
So explain to me, like, they sniff out the hogs, and they lead you to them? Is that what the dog's purpose is?
Yes, they use their nose and they smell them, or they just jump them up and see them. It's curs don't have the best nose in the world, so it has to be a fairly recent track, and they'll find them, and we call it baying. They'll kind of corner the hog up and keep it still, keep it from going anywhere, which we'll have multiple dogs in there to do that. Then we have sometimes a big cur dog that will catch the pig for us, or we have a pit bull dog that will go in there and grab the hog, and then we go grab it and dispart it, I guess you would say. And that's pretty much I don't know how they know to do what they do, but it's crazy to sit there and watch the dogs actually work.
Does someone train those dogs to do that?
My first dog, which is how I trained all of my other dogs, the guy who I got her from was from Peyton, Mississippi. He had a bunch of hogs in a pen that he worked his dogs with, and kind of got them baying while they was really young. Then I threw her in when she fairly knew what she was doing. but I just threw her in with some experienced dogs to let her watch them and kind of learn what she needed to do and what she didn't need to do, which is the same thing I was doing. It's all was a learning experience for both of us, and she kind of just fell in with it and took it. And I've trained a bunch of dogs with her. With got her in 2013, and she passed away this last year, and I believe I've probably trained 40 dogs with her. She was a really, really, really good dog and a very good pet. A lot of people think that dogs that do that kind of violent, not really violent, but do that kind of stuff are not very nice. But she slept inside with me every night. She never was on a chain. She ran loose. My brothers, my nephews, everybody loved her. Just a well-rounded dog. Then once you took her to the woods, she was completely different. She knew what her job was, and it was to go find hogs.
Now, you said that you put something on your dogs to protect them.
Yes, they have a Kevlar kind of vest that goes over and kind of up their necks and around their vitals, on their chest and their ribs. And we have cut collars that kind of protect the top side towards their mouth and all that. And it just keeps the hog's tusk from putting more damage to them than needed. We try not to do anything without them. Sometimes they still do get cut a little bit, and we take them to the vet if needed, or we have stuff to fix them up on site. But we try to protect them as much as we can with the vest and the cut collars and all that stuff.
Is this, this is a sport, but it's also a necessity,
Yes,
right?
yes,
It's
very
not
well.
just you're not doing this for pleasure necessarily. It's to keep people's crops from being ruined.
Yes, we if we didn't, which there are several groups around here that do it, especially on the management area down there, which is around a lot of cropland. And if we didn't do that, I couldn't imagine what the hog population would be, because anything that can disperse them will help. Hunters still kill several, but we get to see the hogs that nobody really gets to see because the dogs can track them down. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know what they would be everywhere. We kind of spread them out a little bit, but we kind of contain them at the same time to a general location down there, to where we can get rid of as many as we can.
There's no way to prevent these wild hogs from getting on your land, is there? Like a fence isn't going to contain them or keep them out.
I haven't seen one. You could possibly high fence your land, but I honestly don't believe I've always heard if they can get their nose through it, they're going through it. I've seen some hogs, just regular tame hogs, get out of a lot of stuff, and they're not wild, so there's no telling what they could actually do to get into the property. I've seen a bunch of fences destroyed from them. Not technically just chain link fences, but barbed wire and stuff, 6-strand fences, to where they could just stretch them out and it wouldn't even bother them. They would just go straight through. They'll find a way to get there if they really want to be there.
Is their skin just so thick and tough that it's hard for anything to hurt them?
Yes, it is. It is very, very tough, and especially the boars. They have a shield on their shoulders that protect them during mating season. They fight each other for the right to breed, and it's anywhere from an inch or better thick. Especially on the bigger hogs. The bigger hog, the bigger the shield is, and their skin is just extremely, extremely tough. You've got to have the right equipment to get rid of them for sure, just because of how thick their skin is and their shield and all that.
Um, will a bullet take a hog down, or does it take more than a bullet?
A well-placed bullet will. I have seen some just shake it off. It's crazy to think, but I've seen some bigger hogs that it took one bullet, and I've seen some where it takes several. And I've seen some hogs live for several weeks with a bullet wound, a vital bullet wound. They're well adapted to survive in any means necessary. They're really an amazing creature just to be able to do what they do, to take a bullet and just walk off like nothing happened. And if you hit them in the shield, I've seen to where the bullet wouldn't even penetrate to them. It would just stop on the outside and never hit anything vital. So you kind of have to look for your shot placement very well, behind the ear or a little bit further behind the shoulder to get away from the shield.
In other parts of the country, is this problem more? I mean, is it more rampant in different parts of the country?
I know Florida has a lot of trouble with them. Texas has a lot of trouble with them. The Mississippi Delta has got a good bit of trouble with them, which is, it's mainly farmland, so they kind of thrive there. I know a lot of places have it a lot worse than we do, which we have it fairly bad, which is not terrible, but I know that a lot of places have it worse than we do.
Are there, like organizations that, this is what they do? You can hire like companies to come in and do this. We're talking to you today as more of as a sport, but again, it really is necessary. So in places like Texas and Florida, are there like professional hog hunters, wild hog hunters who just, that's all they do all day long?
I imagine so. I do not know any personally. I know I do have several buddies that go and trap them for a lot of farmers and stuff like that. They have an automatic trap that they can set off with their phone. And there's a fairly famous guy, Yawp from, I think, West Point, somewhere in that area. He's got pretty famous doing it. Here recently, he traps a bunch around West Point and that area, and catches a bunch of hogs, and which is kind of hard to catch them all, but once you put a big dent in them, it makes it harder for them to keep reproducing. I imagine there is people that do that, and I imagine farmers pay a lot of money to get rid of them because they're losing a lot of money.
Yeah.
But like I said, those guys, they have those automatic traps that they can set off with their phone, and they have a camera on it that tells them when the hogs are there, and they can just drop it, and they'll go there the next morning and get them out of the traps and do whatever they do with them. A lot of people give them to people in need that don't have a lot of food. They're very, very good to eat if you know kind of how to cook them, but the traps help a lot. They do a lot more than a lot of the hunters do, because they can catch so many at one time. It's kind of like have you ever seen the rings around hay bales?
Yeah.
It's about 3 times that size. It's just a big circle with it's not very tall, 5 or 6 feet tall, and it just drops down and traps them in there. It's pretty interesting how far they've come with those traps. Some of the older ones and the homemade ones are kind of a little bit scary. I do know that they can jump out of them. I've witnessed that before, walking up to a trap and the hog jump, 5 foot, or climb up the side of it, I guess you could say, and get out of it. So, even though the trap is down, they can still get out, which is absolutely crazy.
What are some of the biggest wild hogs you've heard of?
The sow that my buddy killed at weighing 397, she was very, very big. She come from Lafayette Bottom. Then we killed that boar that was pushing 300 pounds. that's pretty big. I haven't really heard of any that much bigger than that. You know, there's several 300-pound boars that have been killed in our area. I know there was one, we don't know what it field or what it weighed, but we field dressed it at 285 pounds, which is with everything out of it, so it was probably well over 300. And that's some of the biggest that I've ever been a part of or seen or hearing about, honestly.
Are there any, you know, kind of like myths or legends of, you know, this wild boar that nobody can catch? You know, it seems like in all sports there's always this mythical creature.
There was one in Dry Creek that had put a lot of damage on a lot of dogs, and they chased him for probably 2 years, and they never ended up getting him. But a hunter ended up killing him with a rifle, but he didn't have nothing for the dogs to hold on to. He had been caught and not killed, I guess you could say, but he didn't have no ears, so the dogs didn't have anything to catch on to, and so they would run in and get hurt very, very badly, and that went on for several years, and they finally got rid of him, but not. I've heard a couple about, you know, big white hogs or a blind that somebody will see it hunting, we'd go in there and hunt and never really see it again, but that's about all I can think of. That's one of the main ones that I would like, would be a big blind hog or a black and white spotted, something in that neighborhood, but you don't see them very often, so they're kind of the myth, I guess you could say.
What color are they usually?
Mainly black. That's what we get a lot of. A few red. Then every now and again we'll see some smaller, you know, black and whites or a blondish, grayish looking, but nothing, you know, too big of those. Mainly black, but we have killed some big red hogs.
How tall is a hog? I mean, what do they come up to you?
Some of them probably waist high on me, which is a very, very big pig, and it looks like a car sitting there. It's just short and stumpy, just thick, and you know, they kind of vary. You'll get some shorter hogs, but we have caught some that have been, you know, my waist high or better.
Now, are they aggressive towards humans?
Yes, they are. They will. You have to be very, very careful. Which they have big tusks, some of them, especially the bigger hogs do, and they will use them. When you go in to grab them, they, you know, they're just like anything. They're trying to get away, and they will hurt you very, very badly. I've been charged several times, which luckily I wasn't hit, and it's a very nerve-wracking experience when they do that. I've tripped, and you know, they kind of come towards me a little bit, and I have to keep them off of me with my feet and stuff like that, and be a little bit over waist deep in water trying to grab one and fall, and him swimming towards you. It's very, very nerve-wracking.
Now, you said that the dogs, they go for their ears. Is that what they're trained to do? They go for their ears?
They go for their ears to hold them until we get there.
Okay. So that's what the dogs are doing.
Yes, that's what the bigger cur dogs, like I talked about, or the pit bulls, that's what they usually go for. Every now and again, you'll have one to try to catch it by the mouth, which is not a very safe place to be. We try to discourage dogs from doing that because they will get very hurt. But that's mainly where they try to go. And it's just, if you control the head of the hog, you've pretty much got them. They can't really move side to side fastly, but they do with a lot of force. So that's the reason that we keep those vests on those dogs, because if they've got the ear, their chest and their ribs are right in line of where the hog's tusk are going to be. So we try to protect them from those.
Do the dogs come up from behind on them?
They'll hit them head on. It's a I don't know how to explain it. It's crazy to watch. They're just fearless. They're not scared of the hogs by no means. They go on full force, and they don't back down from them. They I don't know. It's crazy to watch. It's a whole different experience.
Do hogs go after like just other animals out in the woods and stuff?
I've heard of them. Eating armadillos and possums and stuff that they can run up on that may have already been killed by something else. I've heard of them getting baby deer. I've seen a bunch of snakes that have been eaten in where there's a bunch of rooting. There would be a half-eaten snake in it and stuff like that. But I've never witnessed them doing it, but I've heard stories of them, getting deer and just smaller animals, and even themselves, if they have one disparted that's just sitting there and they can't do nothing, if they're hungry enough, they will eat it.
What would be your dream hunting experience with wild hogs? What would you like to do if you could do anything?
I don't know. There would be two of them. I've seen videos of like down in Louisiana of people on airboats just running out through there and shooting them and letting their dogs loose and catching them on the marsh and stuff like that, and doing the helicopter hunts. I would really, really love to do that. That's just that would be crazy. Which I've never rode in a helicopter, so that would be an adventure on its own. But to do what they do on the videos would be awesome.
Are you available for hire for farmers? Is that something that you do?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't charge them, honestly. I love the sport enough to do it. Which I respect the farmer's land. I don't destroy it or nothing like that when I do it. I mean, if they would offer to pay me, yeah, I would take the money. Who wouldn't? But I would do my best to help them out as much as I can, which is, what we do when we can is, help somebody out, especially when they have a problem.
You said February and August. Is that kind of like the season for this, or is it a year-round problem?
Well, it's a year-round problem. During February, we can run our dogs on the government land in Lafayette County, but on private land, with permission, you can run them all year long. There's not a set season for just hogs, with them being a nuisance or considered a nuisance in Mississippi. As far as rifles and stuff like that, you just have to shoot them with whatever's in season, except on private property. I imagine you could do whatever you wanted to with them as far as that, but just during February is when we can hunt the management area. But if we have a farmer that has some troubles, we can hunt it whenever we need to.
You've referred several times to this government land. What are you talking about? What is that?
Upper Sardis WMA in Lafayette County, off of County Road 244. They have, I think it's like 90,000 acres down there. They've got a bunch of bottom land that butts up to the Tallahatchie River. That is where a lot of the hogs are, in the bottom. But you will see them in the hills, because once you get on into the government a little piece, you start hitting the hills and stuff like that to where it comes out of the river bottom. And
so they want people to come and do this because they're tearing up the land?
Yes, they destroy a lot down there. They'll make it to where trees can't root, and they'll blow over, and they, especially in the bottom, make it to where there's a, more water will hold in there because there's so many holes, and it keeps everything kind of mushy, and we try to prevent all that we can.
So there's a lot of, I guess, repercussions of not handling that problem.
Yes, there is. They could, without, I guess you could say, us as a hunting group, there's no telling where the pigs would be as far as spread out. I know that they're working into the West Union area just a little bit, not very much, which a lot of people kind of keep that in check. I'm very surprised they haven't made it to the Ingomar area down the Tallahatchie River, around Bald Hills, a bunch of farmland and stuff like that. But without keeping the population in check like we do, and like a lot of the hunters do, or other hunters, they would really populate and spread out and be very, very invasive.
I mean, because if they just reproduce without any sort of control, they're eventually going to get out of, I guess what we're thinking about is, more like farmland. I mean, they could eventually get into like more residential. They're just looking for food. They don't care, right?
Yes, and yes, they're just out looking for food, and there's nothing besides us that will really hunt them. They have no natural predator. They all they do is eat and reproduce, and other than themselves, there's us that can bring harm to them or kill them, I guess you'd say. And without us, there wouldn't be no keeping them in check. They would be in cities and everywhere else, in my opinion.